Hey, Jimmy Smith for FightPicks.com, doing my picks for UFC 236, Henry Cejudo versus Marlon Moraes. A fantastic main card for this one. Really amazing. A lot of these could be standalone main events on their own. So the fact that they're all on one card is awesome. Also, it's a lot of veterans. So when it comes to picking fights like this, there's a lot of information, there's a lot of background. You pretty much know how these fighters fight. It's how they match up and little details about their specific opponent that make this interesting. So go to FightPicks.com, sign up with the promo code Jimmy Smith, all one word. The link is below, and see how you do. So I'm starting off heavyweight division. Tuivasa versus Blagoy Ivanov, two fighters I know very well. I've called both of their fights. Tuivasa, I did a couple of his in the UFC. I did Blagoy Ivanov's in the UFC, and a lot in Bellator. Both guys came up short against Junior Dos Santos. The key to this, to me, is Tuivasa, young, explosive, confident, strong guy, not a gigantic heavyweight, but pretty quick for his size. Part of the Mark Hutton camp, trains with those guys. Blagoy Ivanov, though, is the veteran in this one. He's the guy who's been around the block, incredibly experienced, fought a wide range of guys, still has a lot of skills, and it's that match between have you fought a lot of guys with experience and have you had too many at the elite level and you're kind of broken down. I don't see that yet with Blagoy Ivanov. I really don't. So anyway, so to me, does the young gun have enough in it to take out a veteran? And has the veteran had too many fights that he's a little bit past it? The thing about Tuivasa so far is I don't like the way he's fought against veterans. Obviously knocked out by Junior Dos Santos, but I called the Andrei Arlovski fight, and I didn't think he did great in that fight. He won. A lot of people thought Andrei might have won that one, but it was close. I didn't like the way he reacted to a veteran fighter who didn't just fold, who had a couple more little tricks up his sleeve, who showed a little bit of grit and determination. So he's a young guy, but against the older guys, he hasn't quite shown that he has a full toolkit. Do I put Blagoy Ivanov in that class? That's the huge question. Blagoy Ivanov, obviously, extremely experienced, 20-2, but beat Brendan Wathrow. Came up short against Junior Dos Santos. A lot of that was just range. Just got outranged in that fight. Didn't get knocked out and went the distance. Not a ton of huge names. Came up short against Alexander Volkov. I think that was his last Bellator fight. So it's about, is Blagoy Ivanov in that class of Andrei Arlovski and Junior Dos Santos who've been around the block and can make the kid rely on things he's not really used to? Or is Tuivasa's youth and explosiveness and enthusiasm and physicality a little too much for the older guy? That is not an easy question to answer. I really think Blagoy Ivanov is a great fighter, and he's been through a lot, and I think that experience kind of carries him through in this. I'm really on the fence for this one, but I'm going with Blagoy Ivanov, and I'm going by decision. Has trouble finishing Tuivasa. He's not the hardest puncher in the world. Great submission skills, but I don't think that's enough to get it done. Blagoy Ivanov by decision. That's not an easy one. Jimmy Rivera, Peter Yan. Now, Jimmy Rivera, another one who's a veteran who's really been around the block. He's fought the much better talent. Almost always wins by decision. He's not a great finisher. Against Peter Yan, who is young, hungry, talented, explosive, hasn't fought the best in the world. Jimmy Rivera has. And once again, you're asking yourself that same question. Has the experienced fighter been through too many? And is the explosive fighter hungry enough? Is he ready to do? That's really the big question to me. So Peter Yan, let's take a look at his record. 13-1, outstanding fighter. Last won the biggest win of his career, the biggest name of his career, went over John Dodson, who also Jimmy Rivera beat. So they've both taken on John Dodson, but when you look at Rivera, he's taken on Uriah Faber, Thomas Almeida, incredibly talented fighter, the win over John Dodson, I already talked about that. Pedro Munoz, he's taken on better fighters. Lost 2 of his last 3. I was there for the head kick loss to Marlon Moraes, just got clipped, that's the way it goes. Aljamain Sterling, lost by decision on that one. Does he have enough left? I think so. This time I'm going with the veteran in Jimmy Rivera. I think he has enough to beat Peter Yan, always by decision. Jimmy Rivera just isn't much of a finisher in the UFC. I go with Jimmy Rivera by decision. Tony Ferguson, Donald Cowboy Cerrone. I could do a half-hour video just on Tony Ferguson versus Donald Cerrone. Let me break it down for you the way I see it. Now, I don't have a crystal ball. I've said that before. I don't know who's going to win a fight any more than you do until they actually fight. All I can do is walk you guys through my logic when I look at a fight and I'm making picks. Let's go with positives and negatives. For Tony Ferguson, the positives are he has the kind of style that has given Donald Cerrone trouble in the past. Donald Cerrone, if you stand and bang with that guy, you are in trouble. I don't care how big you are. I don't care your weight classes. The standard striker, hands up, chin down, walk forward kind of striker, he tends to really do well against those guys. The ones that are a little unpredictable, a little unorthodox, a little different, cause him problems. If you look at, specifically, if you look at the Anthony Pettis fight, Nate Diaz, guys who had a little bit of a weird kind of funky approach or a different style, Cowboy doesn't adjust well to that for some reason. So the ones who are a little unorthodox give him trouble, generally speaking. Now, this one's at 55, so he doesn't have the problem he had at 170 pounds, where guys were a lot bigger and stronger. So that's the positive for Tony Ferguson. Obviously, fantastic on the ground. He can really take a shot. The negatives, he's been off for a long time. He hasn't been consistent. His last fight, October 2018. Before that, it was October 2017. Before that, it was November 2016. He just hasn't fought consistently. He's won. It hasn't really affected his performance, but he's had a lot of time off. Also, all of this out of octagon stuff with the restraining order and the mental issues he's been having, that's never a good sign. So that's not good. Also, in the Anthony Pettis fight, he walked through a lot of punishment. He took a lot of shots from Anthony Pettis, and he seems to kind of dare you to hurt him, walks through it and wins. That sounds great. That's wonderful. The problem is he has a tendency to take unnecessary punishment. The Lando Venata fight, he was supposed to walk over that guy, and he almost got knocked out. He just takes a lot of damage to win fights. He's used to kind of walking through the flames to finish guys. That doesn't work well against Cowboy Cerrone, who, a tight technical striker, the dude hits with real power at 155 pounds. He can put your ass out. So the negative for me is the layoff, the out-of-octagon issues, and his tendency to walk through a lot of punches and kicks to get it done. I don't see either fighter finishing the other with a submission. Unless they get rocked or hurt or really do something stupid, they're both really good on the ground. So I don't see either guy catching one another in a submission. I think it comes down to the stand-up side of it. So the positives for for Ferguson is he has the kind of funky style that Cowboy tends to have trouble with. And Cowboy tends to, or has in the past, he may have solved this issue, have difficulty when everything's on the line. Cerrone has had some of the worst performances. Rafael Dos Anjos, Nate Diaz, Pettis were all like big fights. Winner gets a title shot, and he just has had trouble with those, or they were title fights with Rafael Dos Anjos. So he has trouble when there's too much on his shoulders. I don't think this is the case, because look at it. Yeah, the winner probably gets a title shot, but it's not guaranteed. Also, if you think about it, he's in the middle of the card. This isn't pay-per-view, main event. It's a big card, but he's in the middle of it. That's where Donald Cerrone tends to thrive, either in the middle of a card of a pay-per-view or headlining a fight night kind of thing. That's where he's really at his best. When he's taking on, McGregor, Madison Square Garden, title on the line, that's when he's tended to have problems, but he should thrive here. So those are the positives and negatives for me when I look at it. Cowboy Cerrone has recently been really consistent. Outside of those times I talked about where he seems to run into somebody and just lay an egg, he's been, for his last few fights, incredibly consistent. He's really looked good. Against Mike Perry, Alexander Hernandez, Ali Aquinta, he looked fantastic. The losses, Leon Edwards, Darren Till, tricky guys who are a little bit bigger. Obviously, Robbie Lawler at 170, Jorge Masvidal. Once again, tricky, slick strikers, kind of like Tony Ferguson. Those are the guys that tend to give him trouble. And by that, I mean the Darren Tills, Jorge Masvidal, Leon Edwards. They have a little bit of an unorthodox style. So I think, especially everything going on outside the octagon as well, I think Ferguson's going to try and make a point that I'm still a badass and I can walk through shots like I always used to, and I think he's going to walk into something and get clipped. That's what I think is going to happen. I think he's going to try and make a statement, get a little too funky at the wrong time. Cowboy Cerrone is going to stay tight like he has in the last few fights, and he will win. How, though? I'm going out on a limb here and saying KO, TKO. Cowboy tends to be a slow starter. So let's say third round. Wears him down. He walks into that shot third round. It's a tough pick, and I think it's an excellent fight. Valentina Shevchenko versus Jessica Evil Eye. Once again, I called Jessica Eye's fights in Bellator. Never called any of hers in the UFC. And Valentina Shevchenko, I did not either, but I watched them all. Valentina Shevchenko is, to me, a level above Jessica Eye. Jessica Eye is an excellent fighter. She's really good, physically strong, big for the weight class, has a little bit of a chip on her shoulder for this fight. But she's won her last 3. Before that, she had a 4-fight losing streak, which is almost always the end. So great turnaround for her. Didn't beat any really big names in those last 3, though. It wasn't like she beat any great contenders. Jessica Rose Clark, I guess, would be the best, I would say, of that group that she beat. I see her as a level below Valentina Shevchenko. That's the way it goes. Valentina Shevchenko is an absolute murderer. Incredibly well-rounded, great striking, great on the ground. Against Joanna Jędrzejczyk, where she was taking on another technical striker, she was just better and bigger. Her ground game was better and she was bigger. Her takedown was better and she was bigger. So she just had the advantage in almost every single area. She is a great finisher, but the best pick in this weight class is decision. It's just, they're hard to finish at this weight class. Even Shevchenko, who by comparison is a great finisher, I don't know if she gets it done in this case. I would go by decision, Valentina Shevchenko. Henry Cejudo versus Marlon Moraes. Wow. So, Henry Cejudo, coming off the 2 biggest wins of his career, defeating Demetrius Johnson, and then TJ Dillashaw. The problem with the Dillashaw fight, as dominant as it was, partly because it was so dominant, we didn't see a lot of him, how he takes on a big at 135 pounds. It didn't go long enough for us to see everything he has, how he deals with that in the long term, how his gas is, how his power is when compared to another big guy over a long fight. He clipped him early, hurt him, and that was it. It was over. So there were still, to me, a lot of questions to be answered about how Henry Cejudo does against a natural bantamweight in a long, difficult fight, which I think this is going to be. So, also, his behavior at the weigh-ins, it just kind of rubs me the wrong way. It's you just wonder how much of this is getting to his head, how much is gamesmanship on his part. He's trying to project something. Is this really how he is now? I don't know if you guys saw it, but with the crown on and the magic trick and all this stuff, it's like, and Marlon Moraes is in there in like a t-shirt and jeans, like, dude, what is this guy doing? It was really weird. I really like Marlon Moraes as a fighter, and as a person, by the way, really nice guy. But fighting the best in his career, great performance against Rafael Sunsao, KO of Jimmy Rivera, Aljamain Sterling face down. Really great stuff. And John Dodson, who's always hard to beat, wins a split decision over him. That's his last 4. His only setback against Rafael Sunsao. He avenged that one. Marlon Moraes is clicking on all cylinders. Now, so is Henry Cejudo. But Marlon Moraes is a big 135er. Big, physical, strong, well-rounded. I don't see any gaps that Henry Cejudo can take advantage of early. He's not going to get him out of there quickly. So it's how does Henry Cejudo handle a long fight against a big natural bantamweight at 135 pounds where Moraes is going to be naturally stronger. TJ going down to 125 probably cost him something. Maybe a little bit of his chin. We'll see. So I'm going with Marlon Moraes. Does he finish Henry Cejudo? I hate picking all these decisions, but I don't see him finishing Henry Cejudo. He could clip him and take him down, did the same thing to Jimmy Rivera. He is an outstanding finisher. He has finished his last 3 fights. All right, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's a finish. I think he takes out Henry Cejudo. Marlon Moraes. KO TKO of Henry Cejudo, let's say round 3. I think Henry Cejudo is an amazing fighter. I just think Marlon Moraes is a little bit better. So we'll see how it goes. But so far, my picks, just to recap, Blagoy Ivanov by decision over Tai Tuivasa, Jimmy Rivera by decision over Peter Yan, Donald Cerrone, KO over Tony Ferguson round 3, Valentina Shevchenko over Jessica Evil Eye, once again by decision, and Marlon Moraes gets it done in round 3, KO over Henry Cejudo. FightPicks.com, Jimmy Smith, all one word. See how you do, and I will break them down afterward and talk about everything that I did wrong. All right, later, guys.